This is Nick with Med School Mastery, and today I want to talk about one of my biggest tips for people as they're studying for exams. This could be for any of your classes, but also for something like the MCAT, and this is to force yourself to recall information and to space out your repetition. So that's spaced repetition and forced recall. These are two of the most important things in my studying, and really I wasn't the best student, and by making those changes I was able to do a lot better in my exams. So these are things that you might have heard before, and you might think, oh well, does it really make a difference? I kind of have my own ways, but I would really urge you to try to make a change to use more spaced repetition and forced recall, because what people get caught up doing is just putting in effort as opposed to putting in smart effort. They think that if they just read through a book several times, they'll get the results, or at the very least, if they failed, they would have known that they were studying the whole time. But the reality is, it doesn't matter how much you study, it matters what results you get. And in order to get those good results, you need to space out your repetition and you need to force yourself to recall. So what do these really mean? So spaced repetition, as it sounds, is forcing yourself to recall information at spaced intervals. So in medical school, there are a few different online tools that help you to do that. One of which is osmosis, which is highly effective, has been highly effective for me. Another one, and this flashcards, is Firecracker. Firecracker actually has some flashcards for spaced repetition for pre-medical students, so I suggest that you check that out. And this is a good example of what spaced repetition really looks like. So what it is if you make flashcards for yourself, you go through them, and then after a certain amount of time, the algorithm will say, it's been a while since you've seen this information, so it will pop up again into your queue, and you will have to do it again. So this makes sure that after a few days, a few weeks, or months, you don't just forget that information, and it sticks around. And so when you're studying for 3 to 6 months for the MCAT, you'll find that you'll start to lose some of the things unless you're spacing out your repetition of those topics. So I highly suggest that you focus on some way to have spaced repetition, and flashcards are a great way to do that. I do all of mine electronically because then you can use the algorithms that some of these companies or products have come up with to make sure you're getting that spaced repetition. But if you like to write things out, make things by hand, you can make your flashcards, on regular note cards, and shuffle them, mix them together, and each day, that way, make sure that you're getting exposed to a different mix of things. So that's a good way to help yourself to have spaced repetition. And similarly to that is the importance of forced recall. So forced recall also is what's being used in flashcards, and I would suggest flashcards again for that reason, although you can use other things to force yourself to recall. So with flashcards, it gives you a hint on the front, and then on the back is the answer. So this is forcing you to look at the front and forcing you to recall the answer before you see the back. The one mistake that I see so many pre-meds make is that when they're studying for the MCAT or for their courses, they know they have their textbook that they need to go through, and so for somebody that might be their MCAT textbook, and they're reading through it, they're highlighting, they're maybe underlining some things, but that's it. And they might go through it, highlighting, underlining, multiple times, and it's really that they're putting in hours, but they're not necessarily getting results. And then when they don't do well, they think it's because they're not smart. They think, I put in so many hours, I stayed true to working hard on it, and I just didn't get that good of a score, so it must be because I'm just not that smart. But the reality is because they're not working smart, and that is so much more important, because if you can work smart, you'll have more time to do other things, and you won't have to only be studying for the MCAT all the time. You can live a more balanced life that way. So forced recall, note cards are a great way to do it, but also one thing a lot of people do is they just make their study sheet for a topic. They might have something underlined on the left and then a definition on the right, and if you have something like that, it works just like a note card. You can still do forced repetition, but if you're going down and just use your hand or a book or a ruler to cover up the side with the answers, you can just see the word and then not look at the answer and close your eyes and think, what is this? Describe it, walk yourself through it, and then go ahead and look at the answer. So that's a good way to force yourself to recall. Similarly, if you're going through a textbook, if you did your MCAT book and some of the areas are highlighted, or you circled some of the big diagrams or pictures, you can just, like, as soon as you see it in the corner of your eye, cover it with your hand and force yourself to recall as much of it as you can, and then look at it and see what you missed, and then maybe the next time try to pay more attention to the things that you weren't able to recall the first time around. So altogether, those are two of the biggest things that helped me in my academic performance: forced recall and spaced repetition. I suggest you look into some of the different tools out there, like Firecracker or Osmosis, for help with this, especially once you're in medical school. But now, as a pre-medical student, you'll see that those two things will help you to do so much better in your classes, and they will help you do so much better on the MCAT. So I wish you the best of luck, and take a look at our Pre-Med Strategy book, the Pre-Med Playbook, as well as our Pre-Med Strategy course, which is the Pre-Med BootCamp. Those are both on medschoolmastery.com. I look forward to seeing you there.